I think this was a story you shared 6 months ago. It might have been 9. And actually, it was a topic I talked with Lance Lambert, who at the time was at Fortune. Now he's at Resi Club. Was with the rising of interest rates, we're going to see the small mom and pop builders just not build. They're like, I'm out. I'm going to keep my money in a savings account, making a money market, making 5%. I'm going to stop projects, not going to build. The big boys will because they got a balance sheet and all that stuff. So I'm curious, have you seen any of the smaller builders come back to a lumber yard and say, you know what, I'm going to start building, or not yet?
No, like,
No.
there's there's projects going on. So there's always like, this is one thing that I had to like, really come to like, to an understanding when I tell people stuff is that there has never been a time in the history of mankind that they weren't trying to put some sort of structure together.
Yep.
Right? I mean, like whether or not it's a lot of them or a few of them, there's always something happening,
Always
right?
something. Yeah.
Always,
Yeah.
right? No matter what the condition is. Right? So there's always projects taking place. There are some builders out there doing it. There's going to be profitable ones who knew, recognized, positioned themselves well. They're going to be able to do okay. Those who relied heavily on borrowing money to make their operations work,
Exactly.
they're not going to do well. Like they can't. Like,
Nope.
all of a
You
sudden, like
can't.
all their money goes to interest payments. Like it's just like what's the point, right?
Exactly.
So the amount of builders out there who build all in cash is very small, right? And so
Mhm.
you have to be a big time builder if you're going to be operating within this kind of environment. If you're small time, relying on the loans coming in, you're pretty much out of the game. And now this is something interesting to think about, because how many homes are actually built out there by the small time builder as opposed to the big time? Now the big time, yeah, they're really noticeable because they have all these homes that they talk about, thousands of homes in particular
Mhm.
areas or whatever. But really, if you go across the United States, you're going to find that most of the homes are built by the small mom and pop type of
Agreed.
builder, right?
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
and that's where like really the lack of inventory comes from. Is that I was just talking with my mom about this earlier. Is that the when she was a kid, I asked her, I was like, how many people in your community built their own home? Like literally, like, physically swung hammers, or at least had, the group of people who could do it, but they like physically built their own home. They didn't really go out there and find like a home to
Mm.
build, or find a home that was already built. You're building your own, like you find a piece of land and you do it. And she said a lot of people. Like I even remember listening to, a lot of people working at the lumberyard when I was a kid talking about how, they're building their own home. I mean, this was 20 years ago.
Mm.
That doesn't really take place anymore. So like the
Interesting.
individual dude who is like just got maybe some carpentry skills, who back in like the early 80s could construct their own home, can't really do it nowadays with the way the
Mhm.
permitting is done and the cost that goes into it, and the the qualifications for like building codes and stuff like that are so advanced
Yeah.
now that like just the typical guy who had some carpentry skills probably isn't going to be able to build their own home like they used to.
Yeah.
And so this is another reason why I think there's a lack of inventory out there.
No
It's just
question.